Genesis 16 has an interesting story of a woman named Hagar, and from her social status to her experience with people that she trusted, you really don't want to be Hagar. Hagar is not the kind of woman anyone stands up for. She could walk into a room without anyone pausing their conversation to notice her. A woman with no sense of value, no worth. Life had put her in a position where she's not even recognized by the people that are closest to her. One of the best things that could happen to anyone in those days was to be identified with a person like Abraham, one of the powerful and profound characters of the Bible. And to be a slave in the house of Abraham was even a privilege. It was so much of a privilege that Hagar is only mentioned in the Bible because of Sarai. She carried Abraham's seed, a child from Abraham's loins. Nothing else could have given a slave girl her sense of value and worth. She thought to herself, I now have the recognition I've never had or imagined I would have. Now everyone wants to be seen or noticed, not necessarily by the world or by a crowd, but at least by the people closest to you, and much more by God. And some people are dealing with things today in their lives, and the one question on their mind for God is, God, do you see me? Do you see me? Do you see what I'm going through? Hagar was an Egyptian woman in Canaan, a foreigner yet a slave. And I don't think anyone could have gotten lower than that socially, except maybe you throw in a little something like leprosy. But ultimately we see that her social status makes her powerless even over her own body. Do you know what it means to be in a position where you have zero control over everything, and the person least likely to be seen in a culture, a person that would have been completely overlooked? It is this woman who gives God a name we all want to remember. Elroy, the God who sees me. Hagar means flight, forsaken, stranger, and God restored her hope by renaming her future. Ishmael, God hears. Her encounter with God produced a promise and a process. Now it is not the promise that intrigues me today, it is the process. In Genesis chapter 16 verse 8, the Bible says, and he said, Hagar, Sarah's maid, where have you come from and where are you going to? And she said, I'm fleeing from the presence of my mistress Sarai. And the angel of the Lord said to her, return to your mistress and submit yourself under her hand. Because this slave girl develops an attitude at her mistress. She despises her own mistress. The dysfunction on the outside can be a reflection of an internal error. There was an error in Hagar, and God comes to her not because of the pain of her yesterday, but because of the glory of her future. And God says to her, go back. Now, I'm not suggesting that you go back to an abusive relationship. I'm not suggesting that you go back to emotional abuse and physical abuse. That's not what I'm saying today. God asked her two questions, but she answered one. She answered the question of where she was coming from. Says, I'm fleeing from my mistress. And the question today is, what are you running from? Are you running from someone else's error, or are you running from your own error without repentance? The second question is, where are you going to? Hagar didn't answer the question of where are you going to, obviously because she couldn't envision the future. A negative mind won't produce positive outcomes. If we stay foolish, immature, and offendable, there's so much more that will never come to us, that we will never experience. There is a God who sees and who hears, and there's wisdom in his instructions. And there's someone out there who feels overlooked, someone out there who has not been regarded as valuable, someone who feels like people walk past you like you're invisible, someone who has been mistreated, abused, someone who on a consistent basis is being misunderstood. God sees you when nobody else sees you, and God sees you better than anyone else does. But there's wisdom in his instructions. Where are you coming from? Where are you going to? And the one who asks this question is the God who sees and the God who hears. He wants to give you a promise, but he also gives you a process. Have a blessed day, friends.